Started here in about 1 minute. If we can get branches and divisions to their seats, please. Hey, good morning. I'm showing 0700. We'll get started with today's operational briefing for September 23rd, 2020. Just making sure you guys are awake. Do me a favor, silence your cell phones. My name is Chris Curry, the Plant Section Chief for IMT1. We'll get started with the update.
Hey, good morning. Polo Rodriguez, Night Operations for Incident Management Team 1. Last night we actually had a pretty busy shift. With the warmer temperatures we had the last 24 hours, we ended up picking up a lot more smokes on the interior. From either it started hampering our efforts. We were starting to pull hose at Jose Basin. After we had yesterday, we left it in, and we'll reevaluate as the days come. With that, the burn that we did 2 days ago, got up and kind of walked on its own. We ended up getting a spot fire down there at Whiskey. It hampered our efforts. It went into right below the power lines. We're looking at about 40 to 50 acres in there, and because it's below the power lines, we couldn't get the helicopters in there. Dozers are currently working it now, and hopefully we'll pick that up. In Victor, we got about another 300 feet of hand line to tie in, and that will take care of that. The good news in Sierra, we did get a chance to mop that in. Most areas between 100 and 200 feet was good. Besides that, we had one spot fire outside what we call the cactus outside of Romeo. We did get line around that. It's still kind of pushing in. The last piece of open line on Romeo, we got about 600 feet of line to finish cutting that, and that should take care of that. We did have some heat up in Huntington and around Union inside the homes. With that, have a safe shift.
Okay, moving on to the incident objectives, starting with the management objectives. Utilize a risk management process to identify and mitigate hazards to protect firefighters and the public. Emphasize strategies and tactics that have the highest probability of success and the least exposure to firefighters and the public. Develop strategies to protect life, property, communities, businesses, and infrastructure. Employ tactics to fulfill these strategies while being mindful of the necessity for contingency and emergency plans. Ensure strategies account for incident priorities, applying resources to those with the highest consequences first. Follow COVID-19 CDC and establish local, state, and federal guidance to limit the virus spread within the incident and surrounding communities near the fire area. Provide timely and continuous incident information to affected agency partners, cooperators, and the public. Maintain fiscal accountability, keeping costs commensurate with values at risk. Control objectives: keep the fire north of Pine Flat Lake, keep the fire south of South Fork of the Merced River and the crest of Ansel Adams Wilderness, keep the fire east of Highway 41, and keep the fire west of Minaret's Range. Fire weather.
Good morning, Mark Pellerito, IMET. So some numbers real quick first. 70s for temperature up high, 80s down low, and also RH, again, pretty poor recovery overnight, and we'll be getting down to upper teens to upper 20s for the relative humidity. Winds, this is the key thing today. It's not just winds, it's just about everything. Terrain driven. We kind of toss that term around a lot, but let me explain it real quick and key it in here. The sun does not heat the air. The sun heats the ground, and then the ground heats the air. As soon as that happens, the sun hits the slope, you get the upslope drag starting, and then up canyon. All right, so the sun's everything here. If you have a bunch of smoke blocking that sun, it might lessen that a little bit. The terrain is extremely complicated around here, and so are the winds and the wind directions. You might see some gusts around 10 to 15 miles per hour this afternoon, and where things align, it could even get to around 20 miles per hour. But really pay attention today, because for the next 3 days, the weather's not changing a whole lot. Still warm, still dry, but just not a lot of change, not a lot driving everything else. So the terrain is everything. Really pay attention to what happens today, because it'll be your key for what happens tomorrow and the next day before things start heating up as we get late in the weekend and early next week. All right, that's it.
Fire behavior.
Good morning, Don Watt with Fire Behavior. So use this smoke to your advantage. It's going to shade out the fire this morning. It's going to have a little less activity. So those areas that are active will be a little less active this morning, but they'll be picking up in the afternoon. The big thing to take away from this is, remember, we have a very thick duff layer. We also have the areas where it burned underneath and the surface fuels cured the top fuels. They've now fallen back down. So those areas have potential for reburn. Take the time to go in and really work the heavy fuels, especially when you're mopping up. Those will start coming back to life as we start getting clearing. Even if you worked at one area, come back later when the sun comes out and check it again. Watch those deep stump holes. They will continue to be burning. Spotting distance will be short, especially with the smoke. If it clears out quarter mile to half mile, mostly on the ridges, you'll get the longer distance. Just have a safe shift and have a plan for those islands and keep working those very intensely so that we don't have that reburn potential in most of the areas. Have a safe shift.
Branch and division work assignments.
Good morning, Merrick Fields at Day Operations for South Zone with Incident Management Team 1. Over here in November in Papa, up in November, we spiked some folks out in there yesterday. We got them a bunch of logistical supplies in there, so they're going to be good to go for 3 to 5 days potentially. They've got a really good plan to go in here and start prepping around some of the structures, and then when the time comes, if they have to, they'll go in there and maybe put some fire down on the ground. But that's probably not for 3 or 4 days. They've got a bunch of work in there around those structures to get prepped. Coming down into Papa around Huntington Lake, we're still in there mopping up around those structures. You heard the IMET and the fire behavior, heavy duff, a lot of work. We've got to get in there and turn that over and make sure that we're mopping up good around all of those structures and around Huntington Lake. We've done a lot of hard work to save those structures. We got to keep it that way. Romeo and Sierra, the same thing. We're going in here and going direct still. We're pounding away on this thing. It's one day at a time. We got a couple more days and we'll be able to connect some dots in there and get around the very east side of it. As we're coming down in around Shaver Lake, again, a ton of structures, tactical patrol, getting in there around all of those houses, making sure that it's secure around the houses, making sure that the perimeter line is secure. Coming down into Victor, we still got a little bit of line to cut in there up above the rocks, and that's going to tie it into the Whiskey Victor break. We had some issues with our firing operation yesterday. We didn't put any fire on the ground. The firing operation from your last shift out there kind of pushed on us. We got a couple of spots across the line, but they're in some spots where we can get in there and get around it. We got dozers working on it as we speak, and it's going to be imperative that the day shift gets out in there as quickly as we can and gets engaged on that 40-acre spot underneath the power lines and gets it picked up. That's kind of our Achilles heel on this whole south end of this fire right now. And I think that we've got the resources going in there today to get around there and get after it. Moving on into X-Ray and Zulu, we did some re-entry yesterday. The piece that we did to re-entry, we're going to repopulate today. We're going to do re-entry on another section, so our calls for service are going to go up, especially this evening when the sun goes down and those glows that are out in there are visible. So we need to be diligent and spread out in there, tactical patrol amongst those houses, and making sure that we're engaging with the public that's coming back in there. With that, have a good day.
Branch and division roll call.
Good morning, BJ Corey, Resource Unit Leader with Team 1. This will be the branch and division roll call for the South Zone. Individual resources will be done at your divisional breakouts. So branches and divisions, as you hear your name, please stand, face the folks in the back so everybody can see and hear you. And we will get started with branch 2025. Johnson? Here. Division November is LaFleur, who is still on the line. November Papa Pavone. Here. Division Romeo Smith. Here. Division Sierra Whitwer. Uniform Whistler. Here. Branch 29, Stornetta. Campbell. And we have an additional write-in of Ferris. Division Victor, Dunham. Whiskey, Hinault. And O'Neill, Trainee. X-Ray Zulu, Sorensen. Mitigation, Fleming. And staging, Hale. Thank you, everybody, and have a safe shift.
Air operations.
Good morning. Matt Hill, Air Operations, CAL FIRE Team 1. For fixed wing, we have Air Attack, 1 lead and 2 LATs and 2 S2s. For rotor wing, we have 9 Type 1s, 4 Type 2s. And then for medevac, we have Copter 407. On air to ground, please keep it short and to the point, and hopefully we can support you guys as the visibility allows. Please be patient and make it a safe shift. Thank you.
Safety.
Good morning, everyone. Brad Niven, Safety Trainee, Incident Management Team 1. A couple things for today. Number one is resource accountability. If you're a resource traveling out to the line this morning or a resource coming out on the line tonight, make sure that you're making positive contact with your division, your branch, whoever you're working for. And that doesn't mean you click your radio, you hear static, and you assume that they heard you. Make positive contact, that they know that you're out there on the line and you've made it safely out to your assignment. Please, whether you're a strike team, you're a falling module, or a water tender, positive contact with your divisions or your branch that you are out there on the line. Second thing, starting this morning, the bottom of the 4 lanes up to the top of the 4 lanes are going to be 35 miles an hour. There's an offset cone pattern up there, but remember, 35 miles an hour on the 4 lanes from the bottom to the top. With that, have a safe shift.
Communications.
Tom Webb, Communications Unit Leader. No changes to the comm plan from your previous work shifts. If you have any question about your radio, need help with anything, come see us in room 5. We're open from 0630 to 1830. That's for repairs, batteries, anything like that you might need. Please also remind your crews that we are transmitting this briefing on CDF TAC 24. They can listen to and or watch it on our YouTube channel. It's available via the QR links in the IAP. Thanks.
Medical.
Good morning, Matt Conroy, Medical Unit Leader. Please turn to page 27 in your IAP for the medical plan. And for all the line supervisors, I have a challenge for you this morning. I want you to imagine a scenario where you are the one who's injured and you are unable to talk on the radio. And that brand new first-year firefighter on your crew is the one that needs to initiate the IWI process. Please keep that scenario in mind when you're preparing your briefings for your crews. As a reminder, Box 6 has the line emergency and base camp emergency procedures. If you have any non-emergency medical treatment or supply needs, please come to room 32 where we have CalMat set up. Thank you. Have a safe shift.
Logistics.
Good morning, Jesse Morris, Logistics. For those of you that are new to camp, if you could please turn to page 47. You'll find a facility map there for all your logistical locations around camp. On page 28 are the hours of operations for your logistical needs. And on page 29 is CAL FIRE 101 form. For those items you might have left on the line or have been damaged, you'll need a division group soup signature. And Chief Stornetta, how many lunches per person? Exactly, 1 lunch per person. Have a good day. Thank you.
Information.
Good morning, Emily Smith, Public Information. If you'd like to join me on page 30 in the IEP, I have some numbers for you that you can write in. Our current acreage of the creek incident is 289,695 acres at 32% containment with 3,186 personnel assigned. On the top of this page, as you go into divisions with re-entry and repopulation, there may be questions from the public. We please ask if you could provide them the number on the top of the IP, and if you run across media, there's a media line as well. Off to my left this morning, we have provided a poster in honor of Charles Morton. If you would please take the opportunity to sign your condolences on that, as we'd like to give that to the family tomorrow. Thank you.
Law liaison.
Good morning, Chris Craycraft, Law Enforcement Liaison, Team 1. Like Safety said, we do have some changes to the speed limit. It's going to be changed to a construction zone on the 4 lane all the way up all the way up to the end of the 4 lanes. So the speed limit's going to be changed to 35 miles an hour from 55. So just watch your speed going downhill, okay? And also, we are in the process of repopulating some zones. So you're going to expect some higher congestion than usual with fire, resources, utility resources, and the public, okay? The roads may be narrow. There may be equipment blocking the road. So just give everyone space and drive slow through those areas. Thank you.
Agency Administrator.
Good morning. I'm Kim Serini Wilson, Agency Administrator Trainee. As I was getting ready the last couple of days, I've been thinking about all the different folks that are in camp, and I see blue uniforms and T-shirts and green shirts and all different ones. But I wrote down a few things that I think that are common goals that I see no matter the color of the uniform or clothes that we're wearing, and I see this. I see safety as number one. I see integrity as number one. I see respect as number one, honor, cooperation, and professionalism. I thank you all for your service and keep up the great work, and have a great shift.
Final comments from Incident Commander.
Okay, good morning, folks. So 2 things I want to touch on today, relationships and transitions. So first, relationships. You know, both local units here, FKU, MMU, Sierra National Forest, our utility companies, worked real hard prior to this incident on establishing and maintaining that positive working relationship there. The good news is I see that continuing through this incident and, of course, as we leave this incident. So real important to continue to foster those positive working relationships. Our public, as we just heard yesterday from law enforcement liaison, the public is going to start getting some access into their community and back to their property there. So I think it's real important, as he said yesterday, that compassion that we exhibit, having that empathy as our public starts to get more access back into our local community. So real important there that we're bridging that gap, you know, pre-incident, during the incident, and then as we leave this incident as well. So real important to foster those positive working relationships. Okay, some transitions. So a couple things. So as we kind of look at our map here and the growing containment, the firefight's going to kind of shift and we're going to head uphill in elevation there. Realizing that we definitely have the small Achilles heel that we keep talking about in the southern portion of this zone. We've got November Papa staffed with some folks now. And we're talking upper elevation. This is all this stuff above China Peak, out into the wilderness areas there. And if you weren't familiar with our high country around here, we've got some really good, or really the values at risk out in our high country exist as well. Vermilion Valley Resort you may have heard about. Mono Hot Springs Resort. Those are some of the private inholdings within the forest up there. High Sierra Ranger Station. Each one of those that I'm talking about either has a historical significance or directly contribute to the economy in our foothill and mountaintop communities. If you're a hiker or backpacker, the Pacific Crest Trail, there's a big stretch of that trail that the only time you ever get to see some civilization and have a cold beverage is if you walk out and get to either Vermilion Valley Resort or the Meter Trail Ranch there. So it's extremely important there to make sure we're capturing those values at risk and then we do everything we can do to protect those. Another transition. So unfortunately, the temps. So we're looking at triple-digit heats going in probably Sunday, Monday, Tuesday on the valley floor, and of course probably about 10 degrees less up in our up around the elevation where the fire is. So we're not quite catching a break from Mother Nature yet because we're staring at a pretty good heat wave coming in. So something to definitely be mindful of. And then the last one is some team transitions there. We're in the process here, both north and south zone, of some team transitions. So by the time next Monday gets here, you're going to have 2 new IMT teams on both the north and the south zone. So we're still kind of negotiating some of those, the dates and the in-briefs and all that fun stuff, but there will be some new IMTs coming in starting on Monday. So with that, have a good shift.
Okay, breakout locations. There have been a couple of minor changes since your last shift. We still have November through Sierra still along this row back here, but straight back is Division Victor. And then over by the cafeteria, Whiskey, X-Ray Zulu. Mitigations on the far corner of this building, and then staging is on the opposite corner. All unassigned resources, if you're not on the demo list, see resources at the back table. Have a great shift.